Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Just Law on IQRA TV. I'm your host Ilyas Bulbulia. Just before the break, we had a number of queries about immigration matters, and something that I want to pick up on is what I was discussing with the last caller before we had to take a break. What the last caller was explaining was that they initially came to the UK in 2015. 2.5 years later, obviously the time came for the extension. Applied for the extension, but because there was a problem with the English certificate, the correct one not having been obtained, instead of the 5-year route to settlement under the 5-year partner route, the normal spouse application, because there was a problem in 2017, after the first 2.5 years, they've been placed onto the 10-year route to settlement. And they've been advised, but look, you can go back onto this 5-year route to settlement. It's a common problem. Now, what I was explaining just before we had to take the break was that if you go on to the 5-year route again at this stage, you will still have to do 5 years under the 5-year route. They won't take into account the time that you've spent before on the 5-year route, then back onto the 10-year route. You're going to have to complete 5 years under the 5 years route continuously. So if you go onto the 5-year route now, you're going to have to spend 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, up until the end of 23 under the 5-year route. The alternative is this, that you stay on the 10-year route, which doesn't have any income requirements or anything of that nature. You stay on that 10-year route and you will qualify for settlement after you have spent 10 years under the long residence route, which is completely separate. Because you came in 2015, I beg your pardon, in 2025, forget the 5-year, 10-year route, under the long residence route, you will qualify for indefinite leave in any event. Whichever route you go on, you'll qualify for indefinite leave under long residence in 2025. If you go about switching the routes now, you're going to have to spend 5 years under the new route anyway. So that'll take you to 19, 20, 21, 22. It'll take you to about 23, 24 anyway. So you might only save yourself, probably from my calculations, about 1.5 years. My view personally is, look, there was a problem, you've been placed onto the 10-year route to settlement. My view is I would just stick to that. There's no income requirements. It's easy to extend. There's no English language requirements at this stage up until you reach the 10-year mark. Carry on under this route and then apply at the end once you've completed 10 years in the UK legally, which is 2025, apply for indefinite leave at that stage. Now, that's the answer to that question that we had just before the break. Now, what I was looking at today was coming to the UK to work, and what I was explaining is that the work permit route, which is now known as the Tier 2 general route, is it is a complicated process in the sense that the starting point is that the company that you want to work for has to have a sponsor license, and the Home Office won't issue, generally speaking, sponsor licenses to very small employers such as small retail businesses, very small manufacturing businesses. They won't issue licenses to that. What they want to be satisfied of is that the post that this company wants to fill, the post that the company wants to fill is a sufficiently senior position, and it requires somebody to undertake professional level work to fill that post, such as whether it needs a finance manager, personnel manager, business development manager, production manager, not a work which is at the more semi-skilled or skilled level. It has to be much higher than that at a professional level. Now, if there is such a business and it has unfilled vacancies for senior level positions, then it is possible to recruit somebody from abroad, whether it's India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, to come and fill that role. So the starting point is you look at the business and you look at whether this business is of that size, of that nature, where the Home Office is likely to grant a sponsor license. That's the starting point. If it is, The second point is that the business has to be properly run and managed as far as HR is concerned. So employees that are working there, they have to have had their right to work checks done, employment contracts issued, proper holidays issued, a record of holidays taken, sickness absence taken, a record of the employee's contact details, etc. Proper procedures have to be in place as far as HR is concerned. So one is, look at the nature of the business. Is it a business which is of sufficient size, nature, that the Home Office is going to give a sponsor license? Secondly, you have to make sure that the internal procedures of that business are such that when the Home Office comes in for an inspection, they will be satisfied that this business, sufficiently large, it's properly managed as far as HR is concerned. So that's a second point you look at when you look at businesses to see whether they qualify for a sponsor license or not. The third thing is obviously the application process for the sponsor license. The company will need to apply by submitting evidence that this is a genuine trading company. To the Home Office, we'll need to explain to the Home Office why it needs a sponsor license. What will then follow normally is that the Home Office will send an immigration officer out to the business to have a look at the business, to look at your procedures, and to interview the person in charge of personnel there. And the immigration officers will take them through different questions about the nature of the business, about the procedures it's got in place, about the post that needs to be fulfilled, etc. They look at all that and then decide whether the business should be granted a sponsor license or not. If you do it properly, if you assess things properly, put the right things in place, if you're ready for the immigration officer's interview that will take place down the line, potentially the company can qualify for a sponsor license. The big advantage of that is once you have a company which has a sponsor license from the Home Office, it is then able to recruit employees from abroad. It is also able to recruit graduates in the UK who are from abroad. So for example, somebody from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they've come here, they've graduated, got a degree in marketing, got a degree in business development, whatever it is. If the company has a sponsor license, potentially it can sponsor somebody from abroad. It can also employ a UK graduate who's originally from another country. So that's the beauty, that's the big advantage of being able to get a sponsor license. You are able to sponsor people, migrants basically, people who don't in themselves have a right to work and live in the United Kingdom. So the first procedure is to obtain the sponsor license. The second is when it comes to looking at taking somebody on. You've advertised, you've realized this is the person we want to take on. And even at that stage, normally the Home Office wants to know, have you advertised the job properly? Have you tried to recruit somebody internally, within the UK, I should say, or within Europe? So you need to demonstrate that you've done that. Your business is such that it qualifies for a sponsor license. Plus, you must have made an attempt to try and recruit from the UK or from Europe. And if that fails, you've not been able to do that, it's at that stage that you are able to recruit somebody from abroad to fill that professional level job. So if you're taking a very broad brush approach to all this, that's basically the procedure that one needs to go through. There are other requirements, obviously, as to the salary that the post needs to be at, requirements about whoever's coming to the UK. They need a certain level of savings, they need to have a certain command of English, etc. So there are a number of other requirements that need to be fulfilled. But the starting point always is when somebody says, well, can they come and work here? You need a company that has a sponsor license. You need a company who's tried to recruit within UK and Europe. And it's when that fails, it's in that situation that you can potentially look at sponsoring somebody under the old work permit route, which is known as the Tier 2 general route. Fortunately, that brings us to the end of the show. Inshallah, we should be back Monday at 6 o'clock. Until then, Assalamu alaikum.